everyone, and welcome to American Scouser, one of our special editions, and we have a special guest to go with it. We have Leo Bremond with us. Leo, how's it going, man?
Very well. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks for taking some time, man. Really
Of
great to have
course.
you on board. I think that there's a lot we can talk about, and you have a very successful for those. I mean, it's in your title as well there, but if
Yeah.
you're not familiar, Leo is the man behind the Liverpool Goals accounts on Instagram, and obviously they have like other social media and the website and stuff like that as well. A man with over 1 million followers. So tell all these millions of people a bit about yourself, Leo. I know like your past, you lived in the States in the past and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So just give us some background.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm originally from Europe. Like I grew up between France and Iceland, and it was actually in Iceland where I became a big Liverpool fan because there everybody plays from a young age. Like it's just that you don't see anyone, girl or boy, that doesn't play, and therefore they all support a team. And they just the Premier League happens to be the league there, and it's Liverpool or Manchester United. It's those are the two teams. And luckily enough, and it's quite it means a lot too because actually my best friend he was a United fan and he tried to convince me for 8 months to be a United fan and it just didn't click. I was just like didn't feel it. And then a friend that I met in school who wasn't a close friend just showed me a clip like a VCS tape of Stevie of Stevie and our team from the 80s and the 90s. And by the way, I have to show this because I just printed this photo today. Look how beautiful.
Nice,
This is
man.
from Istanbul. Look at that.
That is
But
sweet.
I saw the emotion of Stevie in the way that he played, and I got goosebumps. You know, and mind you that he was showing me this Sir Alex team, which you would have thought, okay, like they were more successful at the time, but I didn't have that special feeling. And he showed me that clip, and I'm not kidding. We watched like an hour of these like highlights and things, and my eyes were just like this. I got the goosebumps, and then from then on, I just love Liverpool. And as much as it annoyed my best friend, it just that stuck forever, you know. And then when I moved to the States to New York, it just became even more of a passion because when I moved there, I didn't speak a word of English, you know, which must have been the same when you moved over as well, or you speak very little, and so you try to find something that you have in common with other people, and football was that thing, you know. It was something where I could just connect with people, and I became friends with Liverpool fans from just different communities and things like that, and that's really when I started the Instagram as well.
And you were in New York for like almost like a decade, right?
10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
10 years.
And then where are you located
And
right now?
now I'm based in Paris.
Paris.
Yeah.
So in between the countries, obviously you kind of like went through in US during a period where coverage kept improving. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
when you first came to US, we're talking 10 years
Yeah.
ago, it was kind
Yeah.
of tricky to follow
Yeah.
European
Exactly.
soccer.
Exactly.
How was it in Iceland growing up? I mean, assuming since it's a soccer country,
Yeah.
basically, it will be
Yeah.
active, but how
Yeah.
does it compare, like,
Yeah.
to like the US?
No, I mean it was much better. The only thing is it was still that thing where you had to pay, for the monthly whatever it was monthly, and I don't come from a football family, so they never let me like buy the coverage. So I would either just like try to go into the pubs and like look from a distance, but the big thing was we would trade football cards. We would have the cards. And that was like the big thing. Like there was one year where I was just like selling stuff on the street just to save up for these cards, and my dream was to get the Stevie. There's a special, they were called match attacks, and there was a special one where he had like 101 attack, 101 defense, because he's the most complete midfielder. And I remember like the day I got that, I was just crying. I thought I had completed life. I was just like, you know what,
Mission
it's done.
accomplished.
Yeah. I was like 8 or something, and I was like, you know what, like this is it. Like I've got Stevie's card. This is all I've ever wanted. And but yeah, it was less watching every match because it was difficult actually. Even from there, it was more just like learning about the players and watching tapes, things like that. Even YouTube back then wasn't very like filled with stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like
I mean, we were talking before we started recording in terms of like the coverage over here. I
yeah.
think sometimes US fans, especially if they're joined the sport recently, take it for granted how great
Oh
the
yeah.
coverage is, how much access we have to all the games. You're
Yeah.
over there in Europe. How would you compare it to when you were watching it back in New York?
I mean, I was saying before, like, I'm in France now, so you get the French commentators, and I hate it, to be honest. Like, I want the English language. When you're watching the Premier League, and it's just like sometimes I literally mute it. It pisses me off so much, and so but I have to, and I really, like I said, I really miss the U.S. coverage because, like, there's something about it where they're Brits as well. Like Rebecca is British, and it's like this special feeling where also you're watching this massive league, and yet in the US there aren't that many Premier League fans, that you still kind of feel like it's a special thing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there is that feeling that you are quite special because it's not the NFL, it's not the NBA, or the MLB, right? And so
Yeah, I don't do
yeah,
major.
me neither, me
You're
neither,
definitely asking the
exactly.
wrong guy for baseball.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm the same, and so it has that special feeling where you're kind of like you're really into it also because the friends that you have, like I had friends who were Newcastle fans, like you have these different friends in the US as well who support the team, and there's like a special bond that you have from there, and the early wake ups I miss so much.
Honestly, yeah, that's a good point. I never thought of it like that, but yeah, when you get up in the morning at 6:30 to watch a game, it's
It's the
weird
best.
because there is kind of like a weird connection knowing other people who are up with you. Yeah, it's not a very common thing, but
Yeah,
does that morning game experience, I know you were
yeah,
mentioning before we started recording that
yeah,
you kind of miss that experience. How does it, like, what is the part that you miss the most? Is it just that you don't have the anxiety of waiting for kickoff, or it's
yeah.
just the the fresh start of the day kind of a deal?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is usually before a match day, I like get so excited that I'll dream about the team too. And basically, if it's an early wake up, I just love the fact that like the moment you wake up, like mentally, I'm just like switched on type of thing, and then I can just kind of get the coffee going, and then I have that buzz where it just wakes me up like that, you know. And I was also I was also creating content, so I had to be kind of awake. But let's say it was a 7:30 kickoff, then at 9:30, if we had won, my weekend would be like whoa, like I'd be so pumped, and that was the best. The only thing I don't miss is Champions League, like the 4 p.m. kickoffs. Not a fan of that. I prefer
Yeah,
night.
same
That's the
here,
only
same
thing.
here. I definitely,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's like a different experience to kind of like wake up to it, but at the
yeah.
same time, it can really screw up your day if the morning does not do well. And
No.
I kind of like, and sounds like you do too. I kind of live the game. After certain games, I feel like I just freaking played. That much energy goes into it, so you're tired now. The rest of the
Yeah.
day in the morning,
Exactly.
I hear it. So
Exactly.
you mentioned creating content, so
Mhm.
let's start with that.
Yeah.
So obviously this is like your main thing on Instagram, and you started with
Yeah.
Instagram, so I kind of want
Yeah.
to ask you about that first. Why Instagram, or what made you pick
Yeah.
Instagram
Yeah.
as the avenue?
Yeah. So basically, it initially was in 2013, and back then, like Facebook was really huge. Snapchat didn't exist. Snapchat maybe existed a little bit. Obviously, no TikTok. YouTube was more longer, form. And I saw this platform that was just starting to exist, and I've always been a visual person, and so I was just like, I wanted to harness my passion somehow. Anyways, I always had that feeling because also living far away and having friends kind of all over, I was like, I really want to just like be able to connect with Reds from all over, and that's really what Instagram was from the beginning, which is just like coming together through this medium. It doesn't really matter which medium, like you see today, and just putting out that passion and interacting with people, and it was so much fun, like I loved it.
I mean, I
I still
assume
love it.
when you
I still love
start,
it.
you don't
Yeah.
probably even dream of, like where the account is at right now.
No, no.
So like, at what point do you say, man, this could really be something, like this can be huge?
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly, it's I never really looked long term kind of thing, but I just saw that especially the very beginning, it only took like a few months, for example, for 10,000, and that's because at the time there weren't many. So I was just like, whoa, like if I'm able to show fans that I can consistently bring them news, then then I'm sure that more and more people are gonna come, because there was only me, and then YNWA Graham was the other page back then. And so it was just like, I just got to keep doing what I'm doing because people are finding it and then they like it because there isn't anyone else doing it. You know what I mean? And that obviously is an advantage in the very beginning when you're one of the only ones, you know?
Yeah, especially because right now I think there's almost like too many sources
Yeah.
where if you follow too many accounts, I mean, I know, being involved in
Yeah.
American Scouser, I'm in a lot of groups. Sometimes you get the
Yeah.
same
I
news in
bet.
your feed over and over and over again. Whereas, yeah, if you're initially, obviously, that's a big advantage. So let
Mhm.
me ask you this. I mean, as you get bigger, what are like the bigger challenges you come across?
One of the ones is for example copyright. That's something that came about when the account hit something like 600 or 700,000, where photographers started to report us to Instagram, and that was really worrying because at one point Instagram was just like, you get one more copyright strike and we're completely gonna take you down. And I was just freaking out then, and then I was able to find a solution through a photo agency, but uh, a lot of it has been about like how can you improve the content while making sure obviously that it's okay, in terms of copyright. And now, for example, Instagram is moving in a different direction. There's been updates the past few months that are kind of scary in terms of like they've seen the growth of TikTok and they're really scared to lose out to them, lose a lot of people to them. And so they're starting to introduce reels. Like now, the only type of video form there are reels, which is exactly like TikTok.
Yeah,
And and in
you
the
really like
algorithm,
TikTok.
and then the algorithm I can already see is starting to change because they know, like they do an incredible amount of studies, I'm sure, and they know like how long we consume each piece of content, and they can definitely see that with a video people probably stay longer than a photo with text. Like that's just the reality. And so, for example, right now this is a new challenge, and to answer your question, I think it's a lot about just over the years how the platforms have changed to be able to just keep up with it and not basically like keep doing what you're doing because it's not going to work. Do you know what I mean? That's what's difficult. And these past few months, that's I think probably the biggest change I've ever noticed has happened, which is like a change to a lot of video form and and really not helping the regular feed post photos in the algorithm. Like they kind of just seem to get lost.
Can we blame your generation for this or what?
I wouldn't even say it's my generation. I think it's more of your I think it's more of your I would say 19 and younger, for example, is so different to where I'm at right now, which is like 23. Because when TikTok came about, I remember I was just like, whoa, like this is a different level. You know what I mean? And and I don't spend time on it because it's just like it's crazy. It's just a whole different world. But the thing is, if you want to be involved in this world, you also have to understand it, and it's quite crazy, these
I mean, I
algorithms.
think everything, and you see the success of TikTok, like you're saying, Instagram is following, Facebook is
Mm,
kind of following with their
yeah,
reels and things like
yeah,
that. And I mean, I know for American Scouser, initially when we created the website, it was more article based, it was more written content. And we realized as we go longer and longer, I mean, sad to say, but the number of people who read, that percentage is probably diminishing as we go. So it's important to be able to kind of convert some of that to visual content,
yeah,
whether it's like, presented with a photo or whatever it is, and obviously video and, our like YouTube channel and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I think it's more about you get more instant reaction and
mm,
interaction with
yeah,
fans, which is something I
yeah,
want to get to because I
yeah,
know as we grow at American Scouser, we're starting to face it. And that's when you're making it, baby, is when you start getting these like negative feedbacks or haters, as you would call it.
yeah.
I'm sure as you're growing, you're getting a lot of
Hmm.
negative reaction as well. What did you face and like
Yeah.
how did you deal with it?
I mean, the what's surprising actually, and I talked about it this morning because now I'm gonna start creating more content where I put my face on things, and I'm gonna be giving like news and things like that. And I was talking to someone who's a bit younger who's helping with the page, and he knows TikTok world and everything, and he actually thinks, you get so much less hate when your content is a certain way, in terms of like it doesn't breed, like there really is content that does breed hate, and that breeds, you know, comments that aren't nice. Do you know what I mean? And if you always try to speak the truth and the facts and things like that, like one of the first things I made sure is knowing who all the reliable journalists are, for example, because on the page I never want to put out like fake news, for example, just to get more likes. That I think I never did, and I think if I did, that would definitely get a lot of hate. Do you know what I mean? So I think it really depends on what you make, but definitely where the most hate has come has been when I've gone live on Instagram. And I've done like halftime, post match. I don't know if you've seen some of them, but it's been with Jose a lot of the time, Jose
Yes.
Enrique. And there's a lot of hate in terms of like, especially my accent. That's, and I'm sure that you've talked, you did a show about it actually, but the amount of comments are just like, whoa, like I didn't realize he was American. And then like, how can somebody be running the page who's American? Like he's not a proper red. Like what's this accent? Get him out of the club. Stuff like that. You know, not such nice things. But the thing is, like,
See, I thought your accent would actually help because I mean, you don't have like an American accent.
yeah, but it does sound more American than anything else.
I guess that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, that's what we get, I would say, because when we do, and I mean, it is what it is. You're not going to. I
Yeah.
think over time that will change. This like we talked about this on one of our podcasts in terms of
Hmm.
as the sport grows here. I think that will slowly change. I think
Yeah.
partially because Americans have looked down on soccer for so long that now kind of like the backlash comes from that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I know we have not even like responded. We let people comment, and it
Yeah.
is what it
Exactly.
is. Is that pretty
Exactly.
much what you do as
Yeah.
well, and kind of
Yeah.
like feed off the
Yeah.
positivity instead?
Yeah. Yeah, and even with the videos now, I know, like I said, I'm gonna be starting to record videos, which is gonna be like giving my opinion and asking Reds what they think. And I know that there's gonna be hate, probably a decent amount, but I think if over time you prove that you are knowledgeable, how much you actually care about the club, all of these things, then you can start to change the perception as well. Because we all know that in life people have stereotypes. That's just the reality. And the best way you can change stereotypes is just prove people otherwise. Do you know what I mean? And I think the reason also why there's been this hate on Americans is because there's some videos that go viral. Like I don't know if you saw the Pulisic thing, but it was like some guy was on TV, national television, was like, he's the LeBron James of soccer. And then people are just like they know nothing, like they think Pulisic is the best player on the planet, that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? And there's going to be a few fans like that that go viral, unfortunately, and that helps to shape the perception.
Yeah, I think sadly it's just going to take time. I don't know if I'll see those days. You definitely will. You're a lot younger than me, but I
You'll
remember
see.
when the Schweinsteiger came over here to Chicago Fire. They
Yeah.
asked him in the press conference if he thought Chicago Fire could win the
Yeah.
World Cup and stuff, and he was like, he was so confused with the question. He thought he misunderstood the question, but nope. Sadly, that was the question, kind of deal.
Jeez.
But I mean, that's the thing. Anytime I think we do what we do,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously your audience is so much more so, but the rate it's always the same ratio. But when your
Yeah.
audience is so much bigger like yours, you're probably going to get a lot more of it. And I think whenever you give an opinion, some people are not going to agree. A
Hmm.
portion of those people can kind of voice their disagreement properly. And some
Yeah.
people, let's face it, some people just like to tear things down, and you're going to get
Yeah.
that. But
Which
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, which isn't bad either. Like honestly, when I see controversial things, as long as they're not inappropriate,
Mhm.
I'm like happy because it gets the comments rolling, and it's just like, let it roll. It's just when you put your face on it that when it gets a bit harder, because then people might be like start talking about you personally, and that's different, and I'm expecting that as I start to do it more, because I've just had advice for some people that think it's good to also put some personality to the page, which I'm going to be doing more of. But I know that's going to be coming, and that's just something you have to accept if you want to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you almost have to kind of like close their ears to that. And I think what
Yeah,
helps with that is, what I want to get to next
yeah,
is that's only a small portion, and you
hmm,
don't want to take that small portion and kind of affect all the positives we get by doing stuff like this and
yeah,
interacting with fans. I mean, talk a bit about that in terms of like what you've been able to accomplish, or the positives it brings? We talked
Mm,
about the negatives, but
yeah. No, no. There's been over the years. There's been amazing messages like during COVID also, where, for example, I've made sure to always consistently put the news, and I know that for a lot of Reds, for example, they do come to Liverpool Goals for their news, and they've told me how much it meant to them. Where also we always maintain positivity. That's like something that I think is so important because we can't control the situation. For example, the midfield issues that are happening right now, for example, where everyone wants us to sign a midfielder. There's so much frustration with Thiago getting injured again. There was the Keita injury, Curtis Jones, all of this. Well, there's no point in saying like criticizing the club right now and saying like let's put hate on them because they're not signing anyone. Like the reality is, unfortunately, unless the situation gets bad, like the Super League, then I agree we have to voice our opinion. Like that's our role. But for something like this, like there's a structure at the club and the hierarchy decides that structure, and a post can't change that. Do you know what I mean? And so I just feel like in those type of situations, we like it's important for us to voice positivity and say, you know what, like this is going to give Harvey Elliott a chance. It's going to give him a chance. He's such a bright talent, and so I've been putting out a lot of posts about Harvey, and then discussing that because I think there's more value in that than just saying like our situation is, we're in ruins right now. Like it's just it doesn't help anyone, because there's already so much of that on Twitter and on other places.
that's actually
And
interesting you say that, because I notice a lot of accounts. I mean, you guys are more news and fact focused, which is what
yeah,
I like, and which is when I
yeah,
started following. I've
hmm
been following your account for quite some time, even
hmm
even before I started American Scouser. So, and it was more because of that. I think it was more fact based. It
yeah,
wasn't a lot of like clickbait stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
negativity, sadly, like we were talking earlier, kind of tends to breed stuff more. So it's a lot easier to
exactly,
kind of be critical and negative
yeah,
and, invite the hates, like you were saying,
yeah,
and then get the comments going, as opposed to trying to be positive and
yeah,
handling it that way. One thing I wanted to ask you is, because you guys are like a lot more factual, how do you handle on your end how you're going to address like the transfer rumor stuff? Because on our end, we really don't want to report anything or even talk about anything
hmm
until, kind of like you were saying, somebody really reliable and respectable even mentions it, because it feels like it's nothing but clickbait otherwise. When do
yeah.
you decide, hey, this is news I want to share?
So we have like a list of journalists that we find trustworthy. Like the Paul Joyces, the James Pierce, the Melissa Reddy, these type of journalists that we know are reliable, and there's so much stuff on Twitter with things that just obviously is clickbait. And so over the years, it also helps that we've been doing it for a while, where we know the type of things that just aren't true, and so we we tend to not put any transfer stuff, except for example yesterday there was something on this guy called Nunes who plays for Sporting Lisbon. I don't know if you
Mhm.
saw, he's a midfielder, and that for example was a different type of post where he like there is no journalist that directly linked us with him, but Fabrizio Romano, for example, who is reliable, he just said that if the situation is right, that we will go for a midfielder, and that this guy would be a very good option. So that's the type of thing where, because Fabrizio is reliable and he says if the situation is right, that's the type of thing where I felt like it was worth reporting, because it means that the club is definitely switched on right now, and they're probably reaching out to the different agents, the clubs, and they're probably seeing, if a price seems right for a talent that we have actually been wanting for a while, like this guy, I'm sure, then they're gonna probably bid. So that I felt was worthy of a
And I
post.
think that's one thing, we've been talking about this on the podcast for the last couple of days, in terms of, we're a club who waits for the guy we want, like we did with
hmm
Van Dyke and stuff like that. So we rarely go for, even when we had the center back crisis, we rarely go
No.
for an emergency fix. We just try to make it work and wait for the guy that we really want.
Yeah,
And I think, that's why it's interesting to see. And I'm assuming, like, if we go after somebody, it would be somebody that we've been watching for a while. It's not like,
definitely. Yep.
suddenly we're like starting to scout. It's been something we're scouting for a while. So
Yeah.
let me go
Yeah.
back to this and ask you a little bit about like the website as well.
hmm
So you guys started the website. Um, what made you kind of go into the website thing after the social media, and how do you find it's different?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the website's been really tough because it is a completely different world, and this is what's crazy, and you must see it with what you're doing at American Scouser. But even going from Instagram to Twitter, like it's so hard for me, even though I use Twitter every single day. Like it's a whole different world, and like I said with Instagram, I think one of the reasons it's grown over time is because I've always looked closely at the changes, and all of these platforms have so many changes. Like even YouTube now, you see these YouTube shorts. Like again, they're copying TikTok. They're doing the exact same thing, and that's what I find unreal. It's like between these different platforms, if you're not super dedicated and focused on one, I think it's near impossible, because they all have their own ways to them, and the website, I have to say, we found difficult, but the reason we decided to do it is because we wanted to try doing a bit more in-depth content and embed videos, which you can't do, like I said, copyright on Instagram. So there we wanted the ability to be able to embed videos and discuss them. So something that we could never do on the Instagram. But I have to say, it's quite difficult because it's just they're all very very different, and short content, I have to say, has been something that I've just been better at doing because I see that there's a lot more people that consume that, and that enjoy that. So that's kind of why I've kind of honed in on that.
Okay, glad it's just not me then. I thought it was an old thing because I
Oh,
feel
no,
like
no, no,
every
no, no, no,
social media is almost like a different
no.
language. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
gotta
Oh, are you
learn the
kidding?
different language and
No,
like the intricacies of it and stuff like
it's
that. I mean,
crazy.
especially with Twitter, like compared to Instagram. I mean, one of them is visual and the way things work, the algorithms and stuff like that. While all these visual avenues are trying to kind of absorb TikTok in one form or fashion, the way the algorithms work and what they promote, what they don't promote, it's kind of like it's one big mystery. That's why careers are being made out of this right now in terms of getting like social media
Yeah.
expertise. But so with the websites, you talked about like more content. Are you looking to, I guess, like what are the long-term plans for it? I know you mentioned like doing more videos. Is it going to be more of those videos being featured there, or
Yeah, the idea is kind of to create like a hub of Liverpool videos, and one of the reasons this actually goes back to what we said with all these different platforms. There's video content all over the place nowadays. There's some things that will only go on YouTube, some things will only go on Twitter, some will only go on TikTok. And the idea with this is to kind of bring everything together, you know, in one place. And that's kind of the long term thing. But what's difficult right now is because there isn't the viewership on it, that I'm dedicating a lot less time to it than, you see that the Instagram is quite active, and that's kind of where my attention is right now. But hopefully in the long term, as things grow, and there's possibility to just dedicate more time to other things, because like I said, I think if you're not honed in, it's so difficult.
it is, yeah. It's like I say, because it's almost like juggling balls, and yeah, it's kind of hard to do all at the same time. I mean, we have a
Yeah,
lot of people that I'm thankful for involved in American Scouser,
yeah,
where everybody chips in. Because yeah, if
yeah,
you don't have that many hands on board, it's just really impossible to keep up with everything. I know.
yeah.
So you said basically you're looking to add more personality. It's going to be like a lot more
Mhm.
videos, and that's
Exactly.
partially now you're going to be on a podcast as well, right? We were talking about.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit separate, but it's. I spoke to you about Club Zone as well, and I've just loved kind of the work that Ash has been doing at Club Zone, because he has a pretty amazing story where he was a PE teacher for like 10 years, but he's always had this crazy passion for Liverpool, and he decided to quit teaching to do editing full time, and he was just learning it on the side just from YouTube and things like that, and I just think he has such a unique style, so I decided to hop on the podcast there, but here it's more going to be like, and I can send you after like some examples, but basically like 1 minute 30 videos that kind of explain the news of the day, or talk about like an important topic or something that's happening around Liverpool. And the idea with that is kind of just to put more personality, like I said, and in those maybe to put more of an opinion. Like for example, there's one that we want to do on the midfield three for Crystal Palace on Monday, and that's the type of thing where I'm going to show like the four different midfield options. Now that Keita's back in training, and I'm gonna say which one would you go for, and the one I would go with is Fabinho, Hendo, and Harvey, for example. But that's the type of thing where it's gonna be more opinionated, and I think with the face on it, it makes sense in that case. Well, before, since it was news, I think people just kind of want the news, and what's good with that is it doesn't mean that the news will stop. I think it'll just be like it'll also bring some personality that is on top of the news that will always be there. You know?
I think that's kind of important. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll be honest, I fought the video thing for a long, long time. Even when we had the audio podcast, I fought it for a long, long time. First of all, I
yeah,
didn't think, and I still don't think people are ready to see my face on a regular basis. But aside from that, it was just like I don't know, like somehow I don't just kind of fought it, but
yeah,
seeing how much everything is going video for one, and two, I almost feel like in a like a situation like yours, people might, just look at the accounts and, think, oh, they got 1 million followers, they're doing posts all the time. There's no way this is like a dude. This is probably a company
yeah,
or something like that. Whereas if
yeah,
you have your videos, I think it's a lot more important to them to see that this is another fan, like a
yeah.
fan
Exactly.
like me
Exactly.
doing this.
Exactly. That's another bit. And I also, just from the lives, I did notice what was amazing is when I was on European aways this season, it was just really strange because people would go up to me and just be like recognize me from Liverpool goals, and that was also just fun because then we would just talk about just talk about our journeys and things like that, and that wouldn't happen either. So but like you said, I think the most important is kind of just to show that there's people behind it. You know what I mean? And I think people do like opinion as well. So like it's gonna have that bit on top of the news because with news I feel like it's hard to, like, for example, the Thiago injury, like what am I really gonna add on in terms of opinion except say like let's sign a new midfielder? Do you know what I mean? Or say it's so sad that he's injured because he's so instrumental to our team. Like I don't think there's such a reason to put that in a news post. Well, if for example I'm doing a news roundup or something, then it can be more like, do you think now we need to sign a midfielder because like we literally will just have the young kids to rotate except Fabinho and Hendo. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, because I know, especially on Instagram, you guys are very open ended in terms of even when you present the news, it's always like
mhm.
inviting
Yeah,
some
that
interaction with
that
like the
definitely,
comments and stuff like
exactly.
that, asking
Yeah,
what people think. And
yeah,
I think that's why I think it is nice that you're saying, okay, well, here's my opinion, while others kind of like throw in their stuff as well.
hmm
So, what are the long term plans? Where will we see Leo? What will we see Leo doing next?
I mean, there's so many exciting things that could happen, but definitely going to more matches could be great because it can create a different type of content that it couldn't create before. And then I really like the idea of creating. The problem is how to do this, and that's why American Scouser, I really like your site and what you're doing because I think there's a real need for storytelling that's not from the city of Liverpool or from the UK because the reality is most of our fans are all over the world. Like actually pretty small amount are in the UK nowadays. It's become such a global team. And so when you consider that the majority of these fans are all over the world, why is it that we never really hear the stories of Liverpool fans who have a different, and we still have the same passion, like you see with you and I, like you just said, like for you sometimes it ruins your whole day, like the pull-up ruined my whole weekend, you know what I mean? And that just proves that the passion isn't any different. It's just our relationship is different. The way that we maybe relate to the team is different, and yet there's very few stories that talk about that relationship. Even though, like in the UK with the Redmond TV, Enfield Wrap, like we see lots of things that are like going to the matches, interviewing outside the ground, those type of things. But how much do we really get to see? Like I said, fans from all over the world, and I think there's, like, I would really like in the future to, and again, it does come with just having more investment so that you can do more creative things, but the ability to tell some of those stories in a way that people will love to consume it and watch it and comment and be involved.
And I'm sure like you kind of face it when you lived in New York too, but you know, there's always kind of like a battle between when two people disagree. Sometimes
Yeah,
like the cop out is like, well, how many times have you been to Enfield or something
yeah,
like that? Which, you know, I mean, being able to or being in the proximity or you know the possibility of being able to go there does to me at least does not make somebody a bigger fan. I would almost argue that a dude in California who's waking up at 4:30 in the morning to watch Liverpool is actually more invested in the club
yeah,
probably when you get to roll
definitely,
out of beds and just walk like 2 minutes to Enfield, and you
exactly.
can't compare those two things.
Exactly, and actually, one of the first admin that came onto Liverpool Goals, his name is Advait, and he's based in India, and that for me has been an unbelievable. Like that's been one of my favorite parts of doing Liverpool Goals, which has been to connect with Advait, and now it's been over 2 years that we've been really close, like doing this, and that's been amazing because, for example, he does all the halftime and full time posts. That's always Advait, and he hasn't missed one ever. And imagine he's a law student. Like he has a lot of work. He's doing internships on the side. Like he's so busy. And yet Liverpool is like it's one of those things. And that's why I want to tell that story of that passion because he's sometimes, especially Champions League, his kickoff time is 1 a.m. And he'll have school the next day. He'll have an exam the next day. And it's just like those are the stories where I'm just like and I got to see it firsthand because I interact with him almost on a daily basis. And it's amazing to see how it's one the passion is so strong that no matter kind of what you have ongoing in your life, like you're never gonna let it go and you can't let it go. And it actually gives you motivation and it gives you hope, which you carry on to your into your other projects in life, which is so inspiring, you know.
And I think that's probably the most rewarding thing, I assume. I mean, you have over a million followers. Clearly, they're from like all over the place.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you have a breakdown of it, but I mean, obviously, when it's over a million people, they're going to be from all over the place.
yeah.
And that has to be satisfying to know that, you know, you're reaching such a wide audience. You're touching like a bunch of people who are
Hmm.
literally scattered all over the world.
Yeah, no, and that goes back to like the long-term goal. It's like I'm so fascinated by those stories, just the incredible passion from fans that have never been to Anfield, or didn't grow up close to proximity to Anfield, and and it goes back to like how can we really tell those stories because they're so important to our football club. Like we don't realize how important they are in the way that they actually support from a distance, given how important the digital world has become. Like the these fans are are everything, and I don't think the club like we saw them go, preseason this summer, but I feel like the club needs to do more because like I said, there aren't stories and it doesn't feel like they're closely interact. I know it's difficult because there's so much going on
Mhm.
during the season and things like that, but I just think it's such an interesting part of our community.
Leo, thank you so much for taking the time today. I mean, we'll definitely put all the links for Liverpool
Yep,
goals. If you're not,
and
I
I'll be
mean,
sharing it.
I'm assuming everybody who's listening to it better be following you on Instagram for sure. They have to
Yeah.
be part of those million people. If not, they should be right away because I feel like there is a lot of content out there that is just for clickbait
Hmm.
and just to get you to give a like or make you comment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys have kind of stayed honest and true to providing facts and stuff. Maybe like doing it the hard way in many
Hmm.
ways than like kind of
Yeah.
like taking the shortcut. So definitely an inspiration to us here at American Scouser.
Yeah.
We'll be definitely following your lead as much as possible.
And so will I. Like I said, like I love and I like your name as well a lot, which is like American Scouser because I think no, because I think it's just like we can all be scouts. And I think, for example, what Costas has done since he's come in, I love because we now have such a international team, not that many are actually from England anymore or nor Liverpool. And so you see players like Costas who come in and they just have Ibu Konate, for example, like they have so much passion for the team, and yet they're not from there. So for any doubters, that should really, shut them up because we can all be scouts. No, but we can all be scouts because like look at what you're doing, like the amount of work that you put in, and it doesn't feel like work. I'm sure for you either, just because you have such a passion for the team, you never miss a game. All of these things, like we can all be scouts. You know what I mean? We can all have the same love for the team, and I think it's really important to talk about that, you know.
I mean, definitely, and that was the thing. And I'll be honest, like we did get a lot of hassle for the name initially, because again, going with the American, it was kind of
Yeah.
assumed that we didn't know the meaning of it. But I know when I came up with the name, I kind of wanted something more unique than just
Hmm.
saying LFC USA or something like,
Yeah.
generic. So I kind of like wanted to be more specific that, people would kind of connect to in the long
Yeah.
term. And
Yeah.
yeah, like you see, like the Greek Scouser and stuff like that. It's not about being from there, but just having that same mentality and passion for the club. And that's
Yeah.
what we're all after. So, and hopefully we bounce back from this Fulham draw, you think, and win the title. Give us some optimism here.
No, I mean, there's a lot of optimism, especially there's news today that Bernardo Silva is going to Barca, and so that that is big news in terms of like he's a huge player for them, and as much as I hate him, like he's an incredible talent. Like let's be real,
Yes, sadly, yeah.
and and he's not someone that you can easily replace. Although I'm seeing rumors now that they're gonna go all in for Jude, so that would be woo, I think that would be quite tough on Liverpool fans, but if, for example, Bernardo Silva leaves, like they're quite short because we all know the title's probably going to be between us and City again, and maybe Spurs this season. But I just like their squad. If it becomes a little less strong, I think it can give us more optimism as well because we are up against like a crazy team. That's why I think we can be so positive. It's like any other era that we'd be in, the amount of points that we have right now under Klopp all these seasons, like we should have 3-4 Premier League titles, and that's how good we are. So
I think it's a weird era and it's like unheard of. And that's why I think the newer fans struggle to understand how actually
yeah,
ridiculously good this team is. And City is at the same time, unfortunately. I can't
yeah,
recall. And I mean, there's always some rivalries, but
yeah,
never where, I mean,
to
the
that high
margin of error
performance.
is so
Exactly,
small, so small. But
unbelievable.
we will
So
make it, my friend. Leo,
yes, we
don't be a
will.
stranger.
Yes, it's
Come
been
on,
such a
again, we would
pleasure.
love
It's
to
been
have
such a
you on
pleasure.
one of our podcasts as well moving forward.
Yes,
If you're not following it already, check out liverpoolgoals.com. Definitely go to their Twitter account as well. We'll put all the links on the video below. And don't forget to give us a subscribe and a like and all that good stuff
yes.
as well.
Go subscribe and like.
Smash the subscribe button, as they
Smash the
say.
subscribe button.
Thanks a lot, Leo.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.